The almond croissants went in the window at 8:53. Elena knew this because she had checked the clock 3 times in the last 20 minutes, and the hands had barely moved. Outside, a delivery van idled on Court Street, belching exhaust. Inside, Sweet Proof Bakery, the air smelled of browned butter and cardamom, the morning's first batch still warm in its rack. She straightened the last croissant with 2 fingers and stepped back. Perfect. Everything today needed to be perfect. Through the plate glass window, she could see them setting up. Event staff in black polo shirts, carrying folding chairs, 2 at a time through the lobby doors of her building. A portable stage, barely raised, just enough to lift 1 man above a crowd. Chess tables draped in navy cloth, and the banner hung crooked on the left side, Harrington Foundation Annual Exhibition, celebrating 10 years of youth chess in New York. She tilted her head at the crooked banner. Did not smile, did not smile, just looked. Mom. Marcus appeared in the doorway to the back, half a plain bagel in his hand, tablet tucked under his arm. He was wearing his gray hoodie, the one with the fraying cuff he refused to throw out. They put the stage on the wrong side, the light's going to be in his eyes from 2 o'clock on. I know. Did you plan that? She turned back to the counter and picked up a pastry brush. The rental agreement specified stage placement. I only specified dimensions. Marcus looked at her for a second. Right. He took a bite of his bagel and disappeared back through the doorway. She had not planned the light. That was just the building. But she did not say so. The door chimed. The little brass bell she'd hung herself last March, 2 days after opening, because the electronic sensor felt wrong for a bakery. A woman in a running jacket pushed in, stamping cold off her sneakers. 2 of whatever smells like that, the woman said, pointing at the croissant rack. Almond cardamom. $4 each. God, yes. $8. Worth it. Elena boxed them without being asked. It was a habit she'd built. Anticipate the ask before the person made it, because the ask was always the same. Make it easy. Make it fast. Make me feel like you knew what I wanted before I did. She'd learned that in a penthouse laundry room on 5th Avenue, pressing tablecloths for a woman who never once learned her last name. Lessons came from everywhere. You just had to stay awake for them. She watched the running woman leave, box tucked under one arm, already on her phone, 9:14. The exhibition started at 2. From the back room, she heard the faint click of chess pieces. Marcus moving through a game on the board she'd set up for him there. Not just the tablet. His coach, Raymond Osei, had told him 6 months ago, your fingers have to know the weight. Your body has to remember the decision, not just your eyes. She had written that down. She wrote a lot of things down now. Her hand went to her apron pocket. She felt the paper before she thought about reaching for it. Her fingers found it the way your tongue finds a sore tooth. It was folded in thirds, creased so many times the paper had softened at the folds. She did not take it out. She just pressed 2 fingers against it through the fabric. She had been carrying it for 3 weeks. Not because she needed to read it again. She had read it so many times that the paragraphs moved through her head on their own at 2 in the morning, sentence by sentence, comma by comma. She carried it because setting it down felt like setting down the whole last 2 years, and she was not ready to do that yet, not until today was finished. Outside, one of the event staff lost his grip on a folding table. It hit the lobby floor with a sound like a gunshot. Elena did not flinch. Her hands were steady. They had not always been. But that was a different story, and this was a different morning, and there were 4 hours and 46 minutes left before Richard Harrington III walked through those lobby doors and found a chessboard waiting for him, and something else he was not expecting. She slid a new tray into the oven, set the timer with her thumb, looked through the glass at the crooked banner one more time. Then she went back to work. 2 years ago, a Thursday in October, the sky over Fifth Avenue was the color of old pewter, and the wind off the park smelled like wet leaves and diesel. Elena arrived at the Harrington penthouse at 7 in the morning with her cart. The wheels on the cart had a wobble, left rear always, and it made a small rhythmic knock against the marble of the service entrance. She knew that knock, the way she knew her own heartbeat. Marcus was beside her, backpack on, tablet tucked under his arm. His school had a teacher development day. Elena had called Gloria at 6:45. Gloria had a double shift at Sal's. There was no one else. Pamela Harrington met them in the kitchen hallway, already in her coat, already running late for something that was clearly more important than this conversation. "He can sit in the hall," Pamela said. Not unkindly, not warmly, the way you speak to furniture you have decided not to move. "Just keep him quiet. I have people coming at noon." "Yes, Mrs. Harrington." Pamela's heels clicked away across the kitchen tile. Marcus watched her go, then looked up at Elena. "The hall," he said. "The hall," she confirmed. She straightened the collar of his hoodie. "Earbuds in, volume low. You're invisible today, okay?" Okay. He was good at invisible. He had been practicing it his whole life. Elena set him up just outside the laundry room door, cross-legged on the marble floor, back against the wall, earbuds in, cracked tablet balanced on his knees. He had his magnetic travel chest set with him. He always had it. He unfolded it on the floor beside him like it was the most natural thing in the world, arranged the pieces with quick, certain fingers, and went back to his video without looking up. Elena went inside and started sorting. The laundry room in the Harrington penthouse was larger than Elena's bedroom. It smelled like cedar and expensive fabric softener, a smell she had stopped noticing after the first month. She worked in order, whites first, then darks, then the items that needed hand pressing. Richard's dress shirts were always last, 14 of them this week, which meant Richard had been home more than usual, which meant something at the office was not going well. She could read the household in its laundry. She always had been able to. She was on the third shirt, a French-cuffed Sea Island cotton that cost more than her monthly transit card, when she heard the elevator, then the front door. Then Richard Harrington's voice, low and irritated, finishing a phone call. "I don't care what the filing says, just fix it. I'm done for the day." He came down the hall, loosening his tie. Elena heard his steps on the marble, heavy, confident, the walk of a man who had never once wondered if he was allowed to be somewhere. Then she heard the steps stop. A pause. "What," Richard said, "is this?" Elena set down the shirt. She did not move toward the door. She listened. "A chessboard," Marcus said. "Simple, factual. I can see it's a chessboard." A short sound, not quite a laugh. "How old are you?" 9. 9? That sound again, fuller now, genuinely amused. She could picture the expression on his face, the particular smile of a man who has never been surprised. "You any good?" Marcus paused. "I'm okay." She heard the rustle of a suit jacket. She heard Richard crouch, the small grunt of a 52-year-old man in a $3,000 suit sitting down on a marble floor. Then she heard the crinkle of paper. "Tell you what, kid, beat me, you keep it." A beat of silence. "Keep what?" Marcus asked. "That." A pause. $20 right there on the board. "Beat me, it's yours," the way Richard said it. Flat, easy, generous, the way a cat is generous with a mouse. Made Elena's jaw tighten. She pressed her thumbnail against the edge of the ironing board. The metal was cool. She did not go out. She kept folding. She heard the pieces move. She heard Richard make small sounds of commentary. and interesting, and once a low laugh when Marcus did something unexpected. She heard Richard's voice shift register from amused to focused, though he was covering it. 7 moves. 8. The commentary stopped. The sounds from the hall changed. No more small noises, no more easy laughter. Just the quiet click of magnetic pieces on a magnetic board, and a silence that had weight in it. Then nothing. Elena stood very still in the laundry room with a French cuffed shirt in her hands and the iron hissing softly at her side. 9 moves, maybe less. And then Richard Harrington III said very quietly, in a voice she had never heard from him before, "Where did you learn that?" The morning came in fast. 6:15, and the oven was already at 400 degrees, the first trays of morning buns rotating on the rack, the smell of brown butter and cardamom pushing through the whole front of the bakery and out under the door onto Court Street. Elena had learned that smell was the best advertisement she had, better than the sign, better than the Instagram account Gloria had set up for her. People followed their noses. She had counted on that. The name above the door said Sweet Proof Bakery in hand-painted letters, deep gold on dark green. Marcus had named it. He was 9½ when he said it, sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal going soft in front of him, watching her read a business plan she had printed at the library. Sweet Proof, he said, like he was solving something out loud. She looked up. What? You prove things in chess, and you prove things in baking. You can't fake either one. You can't just say the dough rose, it either did or it didn't. She had written it down on the margin of page 4 of that business plan and never changed it. By 7:30, the line was at the door. Mrs. Patterson came in second. Same as every Saturday, lavender coat, canvas tote, reading glasses already on her head, even though she never used them until after 10. Bear claw and a large coffee, sweetheart. Already pulling it, Elena said. The young couple near the window were splitting one bear claw between them, the woman breaking pieces off with her fingers, and the man pretending he wasn't watching the last piece. Elena slid a small wax paper bag onto their table without being asked. He looked up, surprised. You've been eyeing it for 6 minutes, Elena said. A school group came through at 8, maybe 15 kids in matching blue lanyards, a teacher herding them with the strained patience of someone who had been awake since 5. Elena had set aside 24 mini muffins for exactly this. She handed them over the counter in a flat box, and the teacher looked at her like she had handed her a lifeline. How did you know? 3rd Saturday of October, Elena said. The chess workshop always brings a school group through. The teacher blinked. We're here for the chess exhibition, actually, downstairs. I know, Elena said. Enjoy the muffins. She refilled Mrs. Patterson's coffee without being asked. The older woman was watching her in that particular way she had, the way that meant a question was coming. You nervous? Mrs. Patterson said. About the fancy chess thing downstairs, all those people coming through the building today? Elena set the carafe down. Not at all, she said. We've been preparing for a while. Mrs. Patterson made a small sound, not quite a laugh, not quite doubt. She turned back to her bear claw. Elena's hands went back to work. She thought about preparation, about what that word actually meant. She had found this space 18 months ago on a Thursday afternoon, walking Marcus home from Brooklyn Chess Academy. The lease sign was in the window of the ground floor commercial unit. She had stood outside for 4 minutes. Then she had gone in and asked to see the square footage. The building manager had not taken her seriously at first. She had been wearing the gray zip-up she used for laundry shifts. She had flour on her sleeve from a batch of empanadas she had made at 2 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. She came back the next day in a blazer with a printed copy of her business plan and a letter from her small business loan officer. The manager looked at the letter for a long time. They signed 6 weeks later. What she had not mentioned to the manager or to anyone was what she had noticed on the building floor plan. The ground floor event room, separate entrance, available for outside bookings through a third-party hospitality company. She had noted it. She had not said anything yet. She thought about the first time she had walked into Brooklyn Chess Academy, Marcus beside her with his cracked tablet under his arm. Coach Raymond Osei had asked Marcus to show him a game. Just a game he remembered, any game, notated out on the board. Marcus had taken 11 minutes, 23 moves. Coach Osei had gone very still. He looked at the board for a long time. Then he looked at Elena. "Mrs. Vasquez," he said, "how long has he been doing this?" She had thought about it honestly. "I'm not sure," she said. "He doesn't always tell me when he starts things." She had understood, even as she was saying it, that she was also describing herself. The knock came at 10 o'clock exactly. A woman in a headset clipboard lanyard that said Event Coordination. "Good morning. Just confirming the afternoon setup downstairs. We're on schedule. The vendor access is clear. Everything looks good." She paused, checked something on her clipboard. "One thing. Mr. Harrington arrived early. He's already in the venue." Elena wiped her hands on her apron. "That's fine." "He brought his attorney," the coordinator said. "I just wanted to flag it in case—" She stopped. "I'm not sure why I'm flagging it, actually. It's probably nothing." "It's fine," Elena said again. "Thank you." The door closed. Elena turned back to the counter. The oven timer was going. The smell of the next batch was already coming through. Honey, toasted sesame, something warm and certain. Arthur Finch was in the building, which meant Richard was already thinking about paperwork. So was she. 2 years back, on a Thursday in October, the Harrington living room smelled like leather polish and something Richard had been drinking since noon. Marcus was sitting cross-legged on the floor near the window, his cracked tablet propped against the baseboards, moving pieces on a small magnetic travel board he carried everywhere in his backpack. Richard came around the corner and stopped. "What's that?" he said. "Chess," Marcus said, not looking up. Richard laughed. The short, definite laugh of a man who thinks something is beneath him and wants you to know it. He reached into his jacket pocket and crumpled a $20 bill. He tossed it onto the board. The pieces rattled. "Let's play," Richard said, "for fun." Marcus looked at the 20, then at Richard. "Okay." They sat at the dining table. Richard pulled his chair out the way men do when they believe the room belongs to them. He set his drink down. He moved first without asking. 6 minutes later, Richard's king was trapped. Richard sat back. He looked at the board. He looked at Marcus. "Best 2 out of 3, he said, obviously. "Okay," Marcus said. The second game took 7 moves. Richard went red. Not the red of embarrassment, but the particular red of a man who cannot locate the feeling he expected to feel. He stood up. He straightened his jacket. He took a breath through his nose. That was when Elena appeared in the doorway. She had heard the chairs. She had heard the silence. Her heart was moving fast enough that she could feel it in her throat. Richard looked at her. "Bright kid," he said. "You should put him in a program or something." He reached for his wallet. He pulled out 2 50s. He did not hand them to Marcus. He set them on the laundry cart, her cart, the one with her supplies on it, and walked out. The front door closed. Elena stood in the doorway. She looked at the bills on the cart. She looked at Marcus. Marcus was looking at the board. "He left his queen exposed on move 4, Marcus said, "both times." Elena picked up the money. She folded it once. She put it in her apron pocket. She did not say anything because there was nothing to say yet. 3 weeks later, another Thursday. The Harrington laundry room was warm and narrow, and the iron hissed steam every time Elena pressed it down. The shirts came in a specific order, Richard's dress shirts first, then Pamela's blouses, then whatever the dry cleaner had missed. Elena had done this long enough that her hands moved without instruction. Pamela's phone was on the folding table. It had been there since Elena arrived. She had not looked at it once. It buzzed. She pressed the collar seam. It buzzed again. She moved to the next shirt. The third buzz was different, longer, and the screen lit up. Elena did not reach for it. She did not turn toward it. But the folding table was 18 inches from her hip, and the preview was already there on the screen before she could look somewhere else. The name at the top, Richard. The message, Vasquez application flagged again. Meridian capital this time. Keep the streak going. Elena's hands went still. She read it once. She read it again. She set the iron down on the board, very carefully, the way you set something down when your hands are not fully yours anymore. The room was quiet except for the furnace ticking behind the wall. Vasquez application. Daniel's name, Daniel's applications. The ones he had been sending out for 14 months. The ones that kept coming back as nothing, no reply, wrong fit, position filled, please try again. Daniel, who had started waking up at 4 in the morning and not going back to sleep. Daniel, who had stopped looking her in the eye over breakfast. Keep the streak going. She stood there. The iron was still plugged in. It was 40 seconds before she realized she had never moved it. The collar of the shirt under the board had gone very quiet. She lifted the iron. There was a faint yellow-brown mark, faint but definite, in the shape of the iron's tip. She turned the shirt over so the scorch mark faced down against the board. She picked the iron up again. Her face did not change, but her hands, pressing down on the next collar, pressed just slightly harder than they needed to. She drove to Sal's diner that night with the phone screen still bright in her memory, the words still sitting on the back of her tongue like something she couldn't spit out and couldn't swallow. She didn't order anything. She just sat in the corner booth, the one by the window that looked out on Atlantic Avenue, and watched the headlights slide past on the wet asphalt. The booth vinyl smelled like coffee and someone else's fried onions, and she pressed her back against it like she was trying to disappear into the padding. Gloria found her in 9 minutes. She didn't say anything at first. She just set a cup of coffee down on the table and slid in across from her. "You gonna tell me?" Gloria said. Elena looked at the coffee. Steam was coming off it in thin curls. "He didn't leave because he was ashamed of failing," she said. "He left because Richard Harrington made him fail. On purpose. For 2 years. Every application, every interview, he shut every door." Gloria was quiet. "Daniel knew. He knew why, and he never told me." Elena's voice moved through that sentence fine. Then it got to Daniel's name a second time, a quieter version, the one inside the sentence she hadn't finished saying out loud, and something in her throat pulled sideways. She pressed her knuckles against her mouth. Hard. 1 breath. 2. It stopped. "Okay," Gloria said. She reached into her apron, found a pen, pulled a napkin from the dispenser. She set both on the table. "Tell me what you want to happen." Elna wrapped both hands around the coffee cup. The ceramic was hot enough to sting. "I want him to feel what it's like to lose," she said, "in front of people who matter to him." Gloria wrote it down, word for word, exactly like that. Then she drew something small at the bottom corner of the napkin, a chess piece, a queen, rough and quick, 2 vertical lines and a crown. She pushed the napkin across the table. "You've got the piece for it," Gloria said. Elena picked it up. She folded it once, carefully along the center. She still has it. It's tucked inside the deed to Sweetproof Bakery between the first and second pages, where the notary's stamp is. Gloria shows up at noon with a foil tray covered in tin foil, still warm. She comes through the bakery's side door, the one the staff uses, without knocking. She sets the tray on the prep counter. "Empanadas," she says, "for the crew." Destiny and Miguel come out from the back. Destiny lifts the foil and smells it before she even looks inside. "Oh, that's serious," she says. Gloria ties an apron around her waist. It's not her apron. She takes one off the hook by the sink. Elena watches her from the register. Gloria is not on the schedule. She is not on any schedule Elena wrote. She just came. They don't discuss it. Elena nods once. Gloria nods back, tucks the apron strings into a knot, and moves to the counter like she's been here every Saturday for years. The bakery is half full. The espresso machine is running. Someone at the window table is reading a newspaper, and there is a smell of caramelized sugar coming from the second oven where the apple turnovers are finishing their last 6 minutes. It is a Saturday that looks like any Saturday, except the folding chairs are going up in the event space downstairs. Elena can hear them, faint and metallic, one by one through the floor. At 12:47, Marcus finishes the last half of his bagel, closes his tablet, and pushes both aside. He sits up straight. He puts his hands flat on the table. "Mom," he says. Elena looks at him. "I'm ready." He says it simply, not like a kid trying to sound confident, like someone who checked and confirmed it and is reporting a fact. She looks at her son, 11 years old, sitting in the bakery she built with money he won, sitting up straight. "I know you are," she says. "You've been ready." She doesn't tell him what's in the manila envelope. She doesn't tell him what Arthur Finch is going to be holding in his hands in a few hours, or what the words already been filed are going to do to the room. She doesn't need to. Marcus picks up his water glass and drinks the last of it. He sets it down. "What time?" he asks. Elena checks the clock above the register. 2 hours, she says. Marcus nods. He opens his tablet again, not to study, just to have something to do with his hands. Elena turns back to the register, and through the bakery window, across the lobby glass, she sees the first folding chair get placed at the front of the room downstairs, then the second, then the third. The courthouse on J Street smells like floor wax and old paper. Elena gets there when it opens, 7 minutes before 9. She takes a number. She sits in a plastic chair with a green form on her lap and fills in Daniel's full name, their address, the date of marriage. She writes everything in block letters because her handwriting shakes when she's nervous. She does not cry there. She cries in the car. Exactly 4 minutes. She decides afterward, though she doesn't actually time it. She knows because the radio cycles through one whole song and half of another. Then she wipes her face with the back of her wrist, checks her mirrors, and drives to her 7:30 pickup in Bay Ridge. She picks up 3 bags of dress shirts. She does not think about Daniel once during the drive. That Friday, she finds a name through her church, a woman named Rosa who does paralegal work out of her apartment in Sunset Park, who charges $40 for a consultation and doesn't ask too many questions. "Tortious interference," Elena says, sitting across a kitchen table from Rosa. "Someone blocking another person's job applications on purpose over a long time. Is that actionable?" Rosa looks up from her notepad. "In New York, if you can show intent and documented harm, yes. But you need paper, lots of it." "How much paper?" "Enough that a judge can't look away." Elena nods. "Okay." She starts the following Thursday. Pamela Harrington leaves her phone on the edge of the folding table every time. She always takes a call from her sister at noon. The screen lights up and the preview text appears for about 12 seconds before it goes dark. Elena angles her own phone from across the table, pretending to check a pickup notification. She is not checking a pickup notification. Over 11 weeks, she captures 14 message previews. She screenshots every one. She names the folder Press, because that is what she does. She presses things flat, she removes the wrinkles, she makes them presentable. Then she pulls out Daniel's emails. He sent them to her the night he left, a single forwarded batch. 22 rejection letters in a row. Subject line: "So you understand, it wasn't me giving up." She had not been able to open them that night. She opens them now, sitting at Marcus's desk after he's asleep, matching dates against the phone screenshots. January 15th, Richard texts someone named C. Whitmore at Aldridge Capital. "Don't bother with the Vasquez application. Trust me on this one." January 17th, Daniel gets a rejection from Aldridge Capital after 2 rounds of interviews. She writes it down on a yellow legal pad, line by line. Date, contact, outcome. 22 rejections, 14 screenshots. The math is not complicated. She finds the bakery space in February, almost by accident. Gloria mentions the landlord is looking for a tenant for the Court Street ground floor, and the rent is lower than it should be because the previous tenant left mid-lease and took the espresso machine. Elena walks through it on a Wednesday. The room smells like old yeast and cold radiator dust. The tiles are the color of cream. She signs the lease in March and does not tell anyone except Gloria and Rosa. "You're still doing the Harringtons' laundry," Gloria says on the phone. Not a question, more like she's checking if Elena has lost her mind. "Yes," Elena says. A pause. "How?" "Same as always," Elena says. "I press the shirts, I hang them up, I leave." In March, she gets a message through Coach Ozzy at the Brooklyn Chess Academy. He texts her after Marcus's Wednesday session. "Heard something you might find interesting. The Harrington Foundation is looking for a new venue for their October exhibition. Their usual hotel is under renovation. Just thought you'd want to know." Elena reads the text standing in the bakery next to a proofing rack that isn't loaded yet. She sets her phone face down on the counter. She picks it up again. She makes one phone call, not to the foundation directly. She calls her landlord, Martin Chu, and explains what she needs from him. Just his name, just the building address, just the amenity sheet. She'll handle the rest. "Why not your name?" Martin asks. "Because," Elena says, "they know me as someone who folds their laundry." Martin is quiet for a second. "All right," he says. She hangs up. She looks around the bakery. Bare walls, unpainted trim, the smell of fresh caulk still sharp in the air. The sign above the door isn't up yet. The ovens aren't wired, but the room is the right size. She knew that the first time she walked in. 3 days later, Martin calls back. They booked it, he says, October 25th. Elena writes the date at the bottom of the yellow legal pad, under the column of Daniel's rejections. She underlines it once. The 25th arrives without fanfare. The sky is flat and white, the kind that holds no weather, just light. Elena is at the bakery by 6 in the morning. She runs the first proof on the sourdough, wipes down the glass cases, straightens the small paper tags on the pastries. The space smells of browned butter and cardamom. By noon, every table is full. At 1:30, the event crew begins setting up chairs in the ground floor hall next door. She can hear the metal legs dragging across the floor, a low scrape like furniture moved in an apartment above. She does not look up from the register. At 2 o'clock, the guests arrive. Elena watches through the plate glass window. 200 people in good coats, press lanyards, name badges, the Harrington Foundation logo on a banner at the back. Richard comes through the main entrance at 2:05. Silver hair, dark suit, the Patek Philippe catching the overhead light when he shakes someone's hand. Arthur Finch takes a seat in the front row, leather portfolio on his knee. He looks like a man who has sat in front rows his entire life. Gloria stops by the counter. "He's here," she says. "I see him." "You good?" "I'm selling pastries," Elena says. "Go sit down." Gloria gives her a look, then takes a small table by the window. She orders an almond croissant she will not eat. The first 2 games go the way Elena expected. Richard wins both, a clean, practiced gracious. He shakes each young player's hand for the cameras. He laughs at something his own partner says. He is very comfortable being watched. Then the moderator calls the third opponent. Marcus walks out from the side door. He is wearing the blue button-down shirt Coach Osei made him press himself. He carries nothing. He doesn't look at the audience. He walks straight to the table, pulls out the chair, and sits down. Elena watches Richard's face. It takes him 2 seconds. He looks at the boy who is smaller than he expected, quieter, 11 years old with his hands already resting on the edge of the table. And something crosses Richard's expression. Not memory. Just a slight tightening at the corners of his eyes, the kind a man makes when something doesn't quite fit his plan. He extends his hand. "Good afternoon," Richard says. "Good afternoon," Marcus says. He shakes the hand once firmly and lets go. They reset the board. Elena turns back to the counter. A woman orders 2 slices of walnut cake and an Americano. Elena rings it up, cuts the slices clean, does not look through the window again. She listens instead. She listens to the ambient sound of 200 people settling, the cough, the shuffle, the low murmur going quiet. She hears the slight click of the demonstration clock being started. The game begins. She boxes 4 chocolate chip cookies for a man in a wool coat. She wipes the counter. She fills the small sugar jars by the window seats. On move 7, she glances up. Richard has his left wrist turned slightly, checking the Patek Philippe under the table where the cameras won't catch it. His face is still pleasant. His posture is still controlled. She looks back down. On move 9, she looks up again. His wrist is flat on the table. He is not checking the watch anymore. He is looking at the board with both hands pressed still and his jaw set and his eyes moving the way a man's eyes move when he is counting something and the number keeps coming out wrong. The room has gone quieter than before. Elena sets down the pastry tongs. She picks up the manila envelope from the shelf below the register, the one that has been there since Tuesday, under a clean dish towel. She holds it. She does not open it. She watches Richard's face. On move 11, it changes entirely. He left on a Tuesday in December. Elena remembers the sound of the radiator that night, a low metal knock, steady as a metronome, filling the kitchen because neither of them was talking. Daniel sat at the table with his coat still on, his good coat, the one he wore to interviews. "I don't know why it keeps happening," he said. "I interview well. They always say I interview well." "I know," Elena said. She stood at the counter. She had a folder in her hands, the one she'd made for him because she could not stop herself from organizing things, even grief. Printed rejection emails, sorted by date, rubber-banded in groups of 5. She handed it to him. He took it without looking at it, set it on the table next to his coffee cup. The coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago. "It's not about the interviews," he said. He wasn't talking to her. He was talking to the wall or the floor or some version of himself he had lost somewhere around month 11 of sending out applications. "I do everything right. I research the company. I dress well. I follow up. I know you do. Then why?" It wasn't a question. It had stopped being a question a long time ago. He picked up the folder, looked at the top email, set it back down. "I'm going to stay with my brother for a while," he said. "I need to, don't know. We'll figure something out." Elena did not argue. She did not cry at the table. She cried later in the laundry room, pressing her face into a clean pillowcase so Marcus would not hear her through the wall. But here is what she did not know that night. She had looked at that folder 100 times before she handed it to him. She had built it carefully, In order, because order was how she thought. And somewhere around rejection, number 17, something had snagged in her brain like a loose thread. Every company on that list had a name in common. Not always the same name, but the same circle. The same foundation, the same board. She did not understand what that meant yet. She understood it 3 weeks later, standing in the Harrington kitchen with the stranger's phone unlocked in her hand. Now, 18 months after Daniel walked out in his good coat, Elena narrates this to herself the way she has narrated it many times, quietly, inside her own chest, while her hands are doing something else. He wasn't weak, she says. He was targeted, and I ironed the shirts of the man who did it every Thursday for 2 years and smiled when he tipped at Christmas. She pauses. I kept the tips. I needed them. Every single dollar went into an account I opened at a credit union on Flatbush Avenue. I told myself it was a bakery fund. Later, I understood it was something else. It was evidence that I had survived him without knowing I was surviving him. She has not told Marcus any of this, not the full version. She has told Marcus, your father is not a man who gave up. He is a man who was tripped. There is a difference. Marcus had nodded slowly and said, like a game where someone changed the rules and didn't tell you. Elena had said exactly like that. 3 weeks ago, she sent Daniel a text message. It said, something is going to happen on October 19th. You don't need to be there. But you should read the news on October 20th. She sent it at 11:14 at night after Marcus was asleep, after she had checked the manila envelope one final time. Daniel replied the next morning. One word. Okay. She has not heard from him since. She does not need to. But she has thought, more than once, about that folder. Her folder, the one she printed and rubber-banded and handed him at the kitchen table while the radiator knocked and his coffee went cold. She had put the answer in his hands before she even knew there was an answer. She just didn't know how to read it yet. Now she does. And in approximately 4 minutes, on the other side of a bakery window, Richard Harrington III is going to learn what it feels like when someone has been reading very, very carefully. Move 11 happens quietly. That is the strange part. Elena expects noise, a gasp, a chair scraping back, someone in the crowd saying "oh" under their breath. Instead, there is just Marcus's hand moving one piece across the board, and then stillness, and then that particular loud silence that happens when 200 people all stop talking at exactly the same moment and the air conditioning hum from the ceiling floods in to replace them. She watches it through the glass. Richard sits back in his chair. He looks at the board for a long moment. Then he looks at Marcus. Marcus extends his hand across the table, firm grip, eyes up the way Coach Osei drilled him every Tuesday afternoon until it was reflex. No smile, no gloating, just the hand. Richard takes it. He is smiling. It is a very controlled smile, the kind that costs something. Elena unties her apron. She folds it once, neatly, over the counter. The smell of brown butter from the morning's tart shells still hangs in the air behind her. She reaches under the register and picks up the manila envelope. It has been sitting there since Thursday, under the extra receipt rolls and a rubber band she will never use. She carries it toward the door. The room is beginning to applaud. She moves along the side wall close to the chairs, not looking at the stage. She can see Arthur Finch in the front row, gray suit, leather portfolio on his knee, already half standing to clap. He does not recognize her. Why would he? She stops in front of him. Mr. Finch. He looks up. It's already been filed. She sets the envelope on top of his portfolio. It lands with a soft, flat sound. The weight of photographed messages, cross-referenced dates, a paralegal's affidavit, and a formal complaint submitted to the New York State Attorney General's office 14 days ago. She does not wait for him to open it. She turns. She walks back. The brass bell above the bakery door gives one small, clean note as she steps through. She puts her apron back on. She smooths the front of it. She picks up a cloth and wipes down the counter that does not need wiping. Through the glass, she sees Arthur Finch open the envelope. She sees him read the first page. She sees him stand. Not the way people stand when they are excited, but the way they stand when something has shifted beneath them and they need their feet under them fast. He puts his hand on Richard's arm. Richard takes the paper. He reads. Then he looks up, scanning the room, the crowd, the windows. His eyes find the bakery. They find her. Elena does not look up. She folds the cloth, sets it down, reaches for the small chalkboard sign she changes every morning, and picks up the chalk. She knows he is looking. She lets him look. She writes the date on the chalkboard. Then the special. Rosemary focaccia, $7 a slice. She sets the chalk down. Behind her, she can hear the event staff starting to fold the chairs, metal legs scraping the floor one after another, the sound traveling through the lobby wall like a slow countdown. She does not turn around. By 5:30, the lobby is empty. By 6, she has wiped the counter, cashed out the register, and turned the sign on the front door from open to closed. The last tray is soaking in the sink. Gloria pulls on her coat. She is humming something low and tuneless, the way she does when she is tired and trying not to show it. "You doing okay?" she asks. "Yeah," Elena says. "I'm good." Gloria looks at her for a moment. She seems like she wants to say something ceremonial, something that matches the size of the day. Instead, she picks up her bag and says, "The focaccia was really good today. Whatever you did different, do it again." Elena laughs. It comes out small and real. "I added more salt." "That's it," Gloria says. "That's it." Gloria leaves. The lock clicks. The bakery smells like warm flour and rosemary and the faint tang of the cleaning spray Elena uses on the prep tables. She goes to check on Marcus. He is asleep on the cot in the back room, his travel chess set folded on the shelf above him, his tablet dark on his chest. He looks younger when he sleeps. He looks 9 again. She stands in the doorway for a moment, listening to him breathe. Then she goes back out front and stands at the window in the dark. The lobby across the glass is empty. The chairs are gone. The tournament tables are gone. The banner with the Harrington Foundation crest in gold letters has been rolled up and leaned against the far wall, waiting to be collected. She thinks about the envelope, about Arthur Finch's face when he opened it. She does not feel like she expected to feel. She thought it would be bigger, more like something breaking, but it is not like breaking. It is more like setting something heavy down on the floor after carrying it up a very long flight of stairs. Her shoulders ache. That is what she notices most. Within 60 days, she will learn that Richard Harrington III has resigned from 3 corporate boards. The press releases will say personal reasons. No one will believe them, but no one will say so directly. The Harrington Foundation will receive notice of an IRS audit. The Attorney General's complaint having worked the way complaints work when the paperwork is thorough and the filing is timely. Arthur Finch will quietly stop returning Richard's calls. 4 weeks after the exhibition, Gloria will text her a screenshot from page 6. A small item, a civil settlement. Among the assets listed, a Patek Philippe watch. Elena will look at it for 3 seconds. Then she will put her phone face down and go back to shaping the next morning's sourdough. But that is later. Right now, she hears footsteps on the tile behind her and turns. Marcus, barefoot, hair sideways, blinking at the light. "Is there anything left?" he asks. "Olive bread," she says. "Yesterday's?" "That's fine." She cuts him a thick slice. He carries it to the prep table and sits. Before he takes a bite, he reaches under the table where the travel chess set lies in its cloth bag and sets it up between them, quiet and automatic, the way other kids deal cards. He looks up at her. "You want to play?" She looks at the board. She thinks about the folded paper she used to keep in her apron, the chess diagram, pencil worn, soft at the creases. She replaced it 3 weeks ago with the document. She does not miss the diagram. She sits down across from him and picks up a pawn. "Yeah," she says, "I do." He takes a bite of the bread, chews, makes his first move without looking up. "It's good," he says, "about the bread." "I know," she says. Outside, it is late October in Brooklyn. The street is quiet. The bakery smells like yeast and thyme and something that had to wait a long while before it was finally ready. She moves her pawn forward. He smiles at the board. They play.